just love and grace for everyone, for everyone. Yeah, for everyone. I can feel your power, love, even in the hours of the beckoning day or the darkening night. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything. Like a bound, like a baby crying, light breaks over your horizon. I'm calling the fall and the rise of your tide. Like the mountains born in fire, born again by your desire. I'm calling the heart of the world with inspire. 'Cause you are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. I'm calling your heart, your country of love. I'm calling your heart, it's your country club. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are making everything new. You are making all things new. You are
Great. Welcome to Wave. It's good to have you here. We're going to do a little bit of kind of a craft for time with children. And since it is a craft, I'm not doing it. And we're going to have Rachel Dykeman. And I don't know if you have an assistant that wants to help us and show us how to turn those palm fronds into crosses, in case you don't know. And it's kind of really a good symbolism because, you know, Palm Sunday is kind of the opening of this Holy Week thing. And we know that it doesn't stay in a celebration. We know it ends up, those palms give way to a cross. That's an interesting thing to do, than to turn them into crosses. Of course, they're empty crosses. And some people hang on to those crosses through the year. They dry out. And then the old tradition is that you burn that cross on Ash Wednesday and make ashes from it, and then use those ashes on Ash Wednesday. That's kind of the old tradition here. But I'm going to turn things over, and Rachel's going to show us. She learned today how to make palm crosses. Thank goodness for YouTube.
I did get a little help from Jeff Huggins this morning, a little tutorial. All right, so you'll have your palm, and some of them might be like double thickness. So if you have a double thickness one, it's much easier if it's just thin and you just can pull it apart like this. All right, so you start with your palm, and then you probably want it to be like your palm size, and then you're gonna fold it down. And you're gonna want like a lot of extra here. So you'll have it this first step. YouTube helped me too. And then about a third of the way down, so maybe 2 fingers, you wanna fold it 45-degree angle. So then it looks like this. And then about this side, another like 2 or 3 fingers, you'll wanna fold it over. And then fold it over again. So it'll look like the cross now. All right, so this is what, step 4? Okay, so then you will fold the back down another 45 degrees down. And so then it'll look like this in the back. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap it once, up and around. So still hold it tight in the center. So now the cross will look like it has a little ear. Okay, and then down and around. And but this time it's gonna go over. So I guess maybe, sorry, I told you wrong. Maybe go up and around. Okay, so then I'll look down, I'm sorry. So not a bunny, the tail. And then it's gonna go straight over like this. And then up, and then across over this. And now this is going to come back through the bottom. My assistant, I'm sure, is doing all the work for me. Keeping everyone entertained. And you pull it through, and it should, you might have to pull it through a couple times to make it tight. And then you'll loop it through like this. And then you'll have your palm cross. Some successfully, some not so successfully.
By the way, before we move on, we do want to congratulate Rachel Dykeman, who is going to be the new director of our weekday nursery school and kindergarten here at Central Church. Let's congratulate Rachel. Super. Thanks.
Glory.
Good evening. Palm Sunday. We're going to take a look at an old musical. I mean, it's kind of been what we've been doing through Lent. This musical was an album, a Broadway show, and a movie, and you can watch it on television these days. So it covers all of them, but it is a religious musical to a degree. Jesus Christ Superstar, which has been redone over the years in different productions, and everyone kind of takes a little different take on parts of it. But so we're looking at, going to look at a little tiny clip of a movie version of it that was done in 2000, which was kind of also the Broadway show that was opened briefly right around that time. But to set the stage in Jesus Christ Superstar, so the whole thing starts kind of with different people kind of singing songs. It's like all music. And then we get to Palm Sunday, kind of like several songs in before we get to Palm Sunday. And Jesus Christ Superstar, at least in this movie version, I think in a lot of the versions, the Palm Sunday thing ends up kind of almost in a riot. Okay? That's not biblical. The Bible doesn't have any reflection that Palm Sunday ended in a riot. But it kind of ends up in a riot, and there's a song that gets sung by one of Jesus' disciples, Simon the Zealot. We do know that he was one of Jesus' disciples, and zealots were kind of big into trying to overthrow the Romans. Okay, so there's some accuracy here. And in the lyric in the song that Simon the Zealot sings in Jesus Christ Superstar, the one verse is, he says, "There must be over 50,000 screaming love and more for you, and every one of 50,000 would do whatever you ask him to. Keep them yelling their devotion, but add a touch of hate at Rome. You will rise to a greater power. We will win ourselves a home. You'll get the power and the glory forever and ever and ever." That's what Simon the Zealot sings. And at the end of that song, Jesus, the Jesus character in the musical, responds. And we're going to listen to a little bit of his response. This is later, probably later in the day on Palm Sunday in Jesus Christ Superstar. So really that's where we are today. Later in the day on Palm Sunday in the telling of the story from Jesus Christ Superstar. And we're going to listen to a little bit of it. Adam's going to do some messy flipping over, and we hope this works. Anyway, so that's the lyric I wanted to get to, because I think that this is, at some level, a really profound understanding of the gospel. This exact lyric. Somebody has said that Jesus redefined kingship. Jesus redefined what power is, what glory is, what it is to rule, what it is to reign. Jesus redefined it. Some scholars would say in his time. I would say for all time. Because basically what Jesus said was what the world normally thinks of as power isn't real power at all. Because what the world thinks of as power is kind of manipulation, force, if you will, violence. And what Jesus was saying was that real power is freedom and love and compassion. That even the world is constructed, that's the real power, because God made the world. And it's an interesting thing to think about, that we don't understand what power is. Because, we look at things like, who's on the red carpet at the latest award show? Or who won an election? Or who are the top 50 wealthiest people? There's power, and there's glory. But really what Jesus is saying, not so fast. Ultimately, power and glory get defined in a different direction. And power and glory come from those who love greatly, who show great compassion, and who show great care. That's the way to power and glory. And even if that way leads to sacrifice, out of that sacrifice comes new life. Whereas new life never comes out of violence and force and compulsion. That only ever leads to death. And so, it's kind of an interesting thing because sometimes when, you maybe have heard that kind of thing in churches, and sometimes people say, well, that's just naive. Yeah, right. And yet really, historically, let me go through some things. So here was the question. Which of these two, and this is the movie version characters, so, Jesus, and we remember him just as a reference and afterthought. We know a lot about Jesus' life. The other guy up there is Pilate. He was the Roman governor in charge of armies, wealthy, powerful, a friend of Caesar's. Who can tell me anything about Pilate's life story? Nobody. So historically, which of these two guys showed themselves to have lasting power? By the way, I don't know about you, but I am terrified of Rome. Are you? They make great cheese. All right, let's go to another historic example. Does anybody know the African-American man whose picture's on the right? Do you know who that is? Anybody know who that is? Frederick Douglass. Does anybody know the other guy on the left? No, it's not Robert E. Lee. But good guess. We do kind of remember Robert E. Lee. We remember Frederick Douglass, who was a writer and a speaker. That's what he was, an escaped slave. We remember him. The guy on the left was a Confederate general who went on to become a popular politician in the South after Reconstruction, the founder of the Ku Klux Klan, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Does anybody remember him? No. He had power and glory in his life. But, a little over 150 years later, nobody even knows his name. Okay, let's go to another picture. So we know that guy on the right. Right, who is that? Gandhi. Right, Mahatma Gandhi. The two people on the left, that is King George of England and his wife Mary. Who knows? Queen Mary. I think it was Queen Mary. His wife. Gandhi was just he didn't hold an office. He never held a political office. He went without food for some period of weeks to stop violence in India between Muslims and Hindus. He encouraged people to weave their own cloth so that they wouldn't have to depend on the cloth from England anymore. He led people to make their own salt so they wouldn't be dependent on the British for salt anymore, to try to win the independence of India from the British crown. They actually did. They actually did. The person we really remember between them is him. Never led an army. didn't have much wealth, never held a position. But he's the one whose power we still remember. And I'm going to leave us here. Jury's out. Who has the power and the glory between these two? This story is still being written. But one of the things that gives me hope, even if this story, no matter where this story's next turn might be, is one of the things that gives me hope is that ultimately, it seems clear to me where the power and the glory in this situation lie. And it doesn't lie with the guy in the bottom. All right? And I know that it might seem naive to say that, well, you know, except I'm going to say it's naive to assume that he in the end, in an ultimate way, wins. He, in the end, in an ultimate way, I think history proves, will be the Nathan Bedford Forrest of 150 years from now. Because this is how the world's constructed. And this is what Jesus showed in the gospel. Power and glory and real lasting influence are for those who love deeply and who extend compassion to everyone and who care for others. That ultimately that's where the power and the glory lies. Holy Week is going to be a demonstration of that. The powers that be try to eliminate, force, coerce, put down, stop this. But God gets the final word. And it is that very one that was put down, coerced, forced, who's the one we remember today of all of those folks 2,000 years later. Amen.